in less than 24 hours, the 26th edition of the World Economic Forum on Africa gets underway in Rwanda's capital, Kigali. This year's event ties together a range of themes, from how to take advantage of widespread use of technology to how to close the vast gender gap in several sub-Saharan economies. Ramah Nyang filed the following report from Kigali.
Even amongst her peers in East Africa, Rwanda is quite the outlier. It's only been able to grow faster than all of her peers, except maybe Tanzania. But it's beaten all of them in the consistency of that growth. And it's done that without access to any natural resources of any kind. It's done that besides being landlocked. It's done that despite having one of the highest population densities anywhere in Africa. So yes, we're holding WF 2016 over here, but still it doesn't answer the question, why Rwanda?
Why Rwanda? Well, Rwanda right now is an example of the economies that are still growing despite the global economic slowdown. Rwanda has been growing at an average of 7%, and this year is currently estimated to be growing at 6%. And amongst others is one of the most competitive economies, one of the top 3 in Africa, according to the Global Competitiveness Report. It has one of the easiest environments for doing business, according to the World Bank, and has a remarkable story just in terms of harnessing digital transformation and the knowledge economy to restore, just the economic foundation following genocide about 20 years ago. So it actually shows what's capable and how fast countries can move forward by harnessing technology.
Behind me, you can see the tents where the delegates from all over the world will converge to talk about the 4th industrial revolution, which, very crudely put, is all about how do we use technology to make our lives, public services, private services even, a lot better. For example, how do we make it more efficient for farmers to find the right price and the right buyer for their produce wherever they are in any given country? But then that leads us to an interesting conundrum. You see, the bulk of GDP and employment right across Africa doesn't actually come from tech. It comes from agriculture. So yes, we're sitting here in these fancy, swanky environment talking about technology, but aren't we missing the point perhaps by ignoring the one part of the economy where most Africans get not just their food, but their employment as well?
Technology is just a tool, really, to enable different things to happen, a tool for production, a tool for services. So if governments can harness electronic services to be able to provide transparent services to their citizens, to do it faster, to do it cheaper, then technology is not a hindrance.
As is so often the case with these sort of events, there'll be a lot of deals and conversations happening away from the main event. Expect, for example, Kenya and Tanzania to resume pitching very aggressively their respective infrastructure corridors, the northern corridor that runs through Kenya and, of course, the central corridor that runs through Tanzania. We'll also see the debate yet again over affordable internet connectivity versus free but restricted internet access. That will certainly be a very, very big issue here. But here's the thing, once the conversations are over, we have a good time and everyone goes back to our daily lives, what next? What do we actually do with all the conversations we've had over here? We hope to find some proper answers for you right here from the World Economic Forum in Kigali. I'm Ramah Nyang.
And Ramah Nyang now joins us live from Kigali. Ramah, apart from the main agenda at the forum, some meetings will be taking place on the sidelines of the event, just like you pointed out there. Does Rwanda have an express preference on which of the 2 infrastructure corridors they prefer between Kenya and Tanzania?
Well, it's an interesting question, Pina, one we actually put to the Finance Minister, Claver Gatete, yesterday. He didn't automatically opt out for one over the other. His main argument was, look, the more connections we have as Rwanda through Kenya and through Tanzania, the better. He also didn't explicitly state whether or not Kenya's sometimes fractious and tensions well, politics, for lack of a better word, would be a factor in deciding whether to offer the Tanzania the Central Corridor route as opposed to the Northern Corridor line through Kenya. That said, however, there will be some interesting developments coming through on the Northern Corridor. The World Economic Forum will be launching a pilot program that focuses on enhancing internet connectivity along the countries on that Northern Corridor. So yes, there have been a bit of concerns about infrastructure development across Eastern Africa, but the Northern Corridors at this point in time is still getting quite a bit of attention.
All right, so what should we expect once the World Economic Forum begins on Wednesday?
Indeed, some interesting events that will be happening tomorrow. Two, however, that do stand out. We'll be focusing on two things that, of course, we've covered quite a bit on Global Business. Income inequality right across Africa, that's become a continuing concern. We're seeing explosive growth in Gini coefficients in South Africa, for example, over in East Africa, in Kenya, for example, as well. We've seen that becoming an emerging problem. We'll also be looking at growth beyond commodities, and that should be a very interesting conversation, especially in the context of the commodity crash that we've seen since the middle of June 2014 to date. Oil prices might be holding at around $45 a barrel, but that's nowhere near enough, of course, for countries like Nigeria and even Angola at the same time. And holding this event in Rwanda very much is a metaphor for that sort of growth beyond commodities model that a lot of economists, policymakers, businessmen believe that African countries need to adopt to actually wean themselves off this, let's be honest, a very dangerous addiction of being reliant on one commodity to power your growth. When that growth essentially goes away, you're in big trouble, as we're now seeing in Nigeria and Angola. So yeah, plenty of interesting conversations to focus on, but those two, income inequality and growth beyond commodities, are things we'll be keeping a very close eye on here for you.
All right, from Nyang in Kigali. Thank you, Ramah.